my social stuff is,
Hmm.
let me see.
Hello,
here.
everyone.
Oh.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome. Okay, I'll pause for a moment. Welcome to our live panel, our expert panel. And my name is Ed Park. I'm the founder of Neuro Reserve, and we're going to be joined here by three experts in brain health. And I'll just kind of wait for maybe 15 or so seconds, and then we'll get started. Yeah. So I see a lot of people kind of coming in, and hopefully you all hear me okay. You can definitely comment and let me know if you don't. So, all right. And looks like Tom, is Tom in here now? There you are. Okay, great. Okay, excellent. All right, so we're all here. So I'm going to formally start this here. So welcome everyone to this interactive event. And once again, I'm Ed Park, founder of Neuro Reserve. And this is 4 experts giving 4 moves you can make for big wins in brain health, especially as we're aging. So here's what's going on. I mean, it's a special month. It's June, and every June is Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month. So we're doing this obviously for education and awareness, but mostly it's to create a forum where we can, people who are really interested, motivated for their brain health, we can all just get together and just dialogue with each other about how to get it going, how to amplify it, how to get started. And questions that we have. So we really want this to be like a nice interactive time together. And I'm going to go ahead and just share one thing here really quick. I'm going to flash something on the screen, and this is our agenda for today. So hopefully you see this, and so here's what to expect. So we'll start a dialogue. It'll be on 4 of these areas, these high impact areas for brain health: social connections, dietary transformation, overall body health and how that affects brain health, of course, and a few specific nutrients. So we're going to start a conversation, and each one of us will cover one of those aspects, and then we're going to go into a Q&A session. And the thing I'd like to remind people up here for the Q&A session is if you have a question along the way, what you should do is there should be a little button for Q&A, actually. So it should say Q&A up above, and you can click on that and you can add a question. So please do that anytime along the way. We might be taking some questions along the way, and then we're going to have this full Q&A session near the end. We want to have enough time for that. You can put your questions in the comments. We'll be monitoring that, but the preferred way is in the Q&A section, because that way it gets into like a tally, into a queue. And then finally, we're going to do a raffle. If you're motivated about brain health, if you want to do something about it and you're here, then definitely we're going to do a raffle. You should walk away with something. We have 2 like big prizes, like grand prizes, if you will, that we're going to be giving away at the end. And then for everybody, there's special offers that we'd like to offer to them, to you, for everybody who's here. So these are actually quite unique to this specific event, so you might want to have like a pen and paper, on hand, and then also we'll put it into the comments as well, some links as well into the comments. So hopefully that that gives you some ideas of how we're going to go through this. But I did mention interaction. So what I'd like to do is let's all practice. Okay, so I'm going to launch a poll, and I hope this thing works, right? But one thing I'd like to do, we'd all like to do, is find out, why are you here? And I think that'll help us remind ourselves what are we looking for here? And there's 4 options there in front of you. You can choose any of them that apply as far as why you're here or why you feel motivated to either care about or maybe even be concerned about, but definitely care about your brain health. So take a moment to fill in whatever applies to you. Maybe don't feel as sharp. I have family and friends affected. Hey, I feel like I'm doing fine, but I'm super proactive. Or I'm into healthy aging. I want to get into that. So anyway, so I selected mine and I've submitted mine. So, okay. So if everyone's done that, let's see how it turns out. I'm going to share the results and then we're going to briefly introduce the panelists here. So, all right, here we go. Let's see if it works out. Okay. All right. So the winners are, I have family and friends. We got 29% there. I feel great. That's really good, everybody. I feel great, but I want to be proactive. That's super awesome. That's super awesome. And I'm interested in healthy aging in general. Okay, great. That's perfect as well, because there's so many aspects of healthy aging that affect the brain health as well. So, okay. So I think we got the polls working. I'm going to make a brief introduction to each one of our panelists, and then we'll get started here. And the first one, you might see her there. I don't know where she is on your screen, everyone, but I do see her on my upper right. Jennifer Ventrelli, RDN. And she's assistant professor in preventive medicine and also in clinical nutrition over at Rush University Medical Center. And super big in nutrition. She is a consummate expert in meditation and mindfulness, and that's what we might be discussing quite a bit of very soon. In cognitive health, of course. Lead dietitian she is for the U.S. Pointer study, which is a massive study that was done in diet and lifestyle to help people slow down and maybe even stave off cognitive decline. So huge there. And co-author, I'm going to try and get all this, Jennifer, and co-author and co-founder of the official Mind Diet. So that's actually a book, the official Mind Diet, and it's also a Substack community. So you can find her there. So that's Jennifer. Thank you so much for joining us and taking some time out to answer questions. Yes, and there was one more role or title I wanted to add to that, and that is mom. I think you've recently added that title to your resume.
That's right, Ed.
So
most important one.
About 6 months now you've been in that role, right?
That's right. Just about exactly 6 months. Feels like 62 years.
Wonderful. Our next panelist is Annie Fenn, and Annie is the founder of Brain Health Kitchen. Annie founded it in 2015. Way before I think it was even like a thing to talk about very often at all. In fact, brain health cooking and cooking for your brain health, and this was something Annie was doing since 2015, starting in classes in Jackson and teaching people how to cook brain healthy, and then turning it into retreats. And now it's a massive Substack community called the Brain Health Kitchen. And also it's a book as well. So the Brain Health Kitchen, How to Fight Alzheimer's Through Food. So it's also a book, a cookbook that Annie has written as well. Been a lot of different places in media, Today's Show, etc. So just thanks so much, Annie, for being here today.
Oh, it's so great to be here. It's good to see everybody.
Yeah, awesome to see you. And hopefully people can see Tom. Tom, looks like you're somewhere out there where there's sand dunes going on, stuff like that. Perfect.
I wish. I'm in my beautiful fluorescent office.
Excellent. So Tom Holland, MD, is assistant professor at Rush University as well. He's big researcher in overall chronic health. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, Tom, but big interest in overall chronic health and researching in that area. A lot of your fellowship work was very focused on nutrition and Alzheimer's. That's, I think, where you made a lot of great, great research there in that area. And now just overall, you're like the perfect person to speak about overall health in the context of brain health. Tom is also was also a medical advisor and also a clinician for the U.S. Pointer study as well. So wonderful to have you here, Tom.
Yeah, absolutely. Very happy to be here.
Yeah, great. Well, we're going to dive right in here. The first thing that we wanted to cover in our dialogue here and to start out is social connections. I think it's probably something that isn't mentioned In the context of brain aging, I don't think it's mentioned enough. So, Jen, we just wanted you to start us out, tell us about why it's important and how we can move forward with it.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. I'm excited to be here and see all of you. And I'm used to talking about food, but today I'm going to tell you that social connection is not just about food. Brain health is not just about food. It's also about social connection. As Ed mentioned, we did a huge study exploring the role of multi-domain lifestyle habits, things that you have to do together in order to flourish your brain health. So what the US Pointer study found is that people who engaged in multiple lifestyle habits had improved cognitive functioning. These were older adults who were at risk for dementia. And they, when they engaged in these habits compared to individuals who were just given the information, right? We all love to learn about information, but actually engaging in the information and doing the habits really helped improve their cognitive health. And so one of those components is social interaction. And the first thing that comes to my mind when I think of social interaction, I'm actually going to show you. Let's see if I can share a little picture here. And it's what Ed mentioned was my most important title, and that's mommy. So this is my little guy. This is Marco with my mom, with grandma. And shortly after Marco was born, this is shortly after Marco was born, we invited my mom to come help out. And she was terrified. My mom, once upon a time, was the most socially connected, vibrant, excited, conversational person who loved to move and be active person that I ever knew. Then she retired and she thought she wanted to get out of the cold weather in Chicago, and she moved to Las Vegas. She moved away from a lot of her family and friends. And not only did her mental well-being start to suffer as she isolated and moved away from people, but her physical health did too. She said to me, I don't think I can come help. What if I can't lift him in and out of his crib? I don't feel well. What if I can't go up and down the stairs? What if I can't drive with him? And she was really scared, and it took a lot of convincing. But then once she did come and sit with him and help out, which she could do fabulously, it was like her old self came back. Not only did she mentally become happier and she was able to engage, but miraculously, she could do all of the physical things that she thought she couldn't do. So that's just one example of the ability of the mental ability that maybe some of us think can hold us back. But science shows this too. Towards the end of our session, Ed is going to show us a list of 14 what we call modifiable risk factors that science tells us can prevent or delay up to 45% of dementias worldwide. Social isolation is one of those, meaning when we retreat, when we're not social with others, that's actually a risk factor for the aging brain. It can advance decline in cognition over time. So what can we do? What can we do in order to stay connected to people? Well, I want to give you three quick tips to stay engaged. First, you don't have to, go out and create a whole new circle of friends. This doesn't have to be complicated. First thing is make a micro connection. Reach out to that person that you've been thinking about. Make that phone call, even if it's a simple text message, right? It's the quality of our connections that matter, not the quantity of our connections that matter. So just reach out. I've been meaning to do this. Just do it. Make a micro connection. Number two, one of the things that we said for people to do in the US Pointer study when they were making their social connections was to do something new and active. Activate your brain with new learning. Our brains love novelty and they love shared experiences. So join a walking group if you're going to play a game in a group, card game, bingo, volunteer, Instead of watching that cooking show on TV, go join a cooking class and actually do cooking with people. So essentially do something with someone, not just next to someone. And number 3, be vulnerable. So that's one of the things that really became clear to me as a new mom. If you feel like you need help, I felt like I needed help, but didn't feel comfortable telling people. People want to help you, but they don't know how to help you. Being vulnerable helps build connections it's so powerful when we're willing to share what's really going on with us, even when it's our struggles. So if someone says to you, "How are you?" Tell them how you really are. That can really build a powerful connection. So be vulnerable. So 3 tips: make your micro connection, share a new experience with someone, and be vulnerable. So we're doing this 4-week social challenge on our Official Mind Diet Substack. And if you like these short tips, we're challenging people to do a variety of things. We're doing our 4th and final week this week. If you'd like to join our community, and we post every Thursday. So that's tomorrow if you want to join us. And this one's my favorite topic, and it's give more than you get. So when you give to others, that's going to satisfy and help you for yourself as well.
Yeah.
So those are my tips, Ed.
All right. All right. Now you may not, oh, I forgot to mention, there's a person named Sydney in the background here, right? So he's kind of helping out here. I just want to know, Sydney, are you detecting any questions specifically on this topic right now? Or should we just do a quick poll on this?
Not yet any questions.
Okay, well,
But
we'll see.
we'll get some later.
We'll see if
Yeah.
people are listening. And by the way, Jen, I'm sorry, but I just basically lifted this straight off of your micro connections here. So, so I'm just going to launch a quick poll, and hopefully people can take a guess based upon what Jen just said. You can choose all that apply, but what's one small daily action? I think she called them micro connections that can help create a positive social connection and obviously help your brain health. So why don't you click the ones that you think apply as these positive social connections? And so, of course, for me, I'm clicking on doom scrolling. That's exactly what I'm going to be doing today. That's just to hint people about certain things not to do. I don't know, but I'll go ahead and submit your answers now. And then we'll go ahead and we'll take a look and see how well people are kind of connecting with social connection here. So, okay. So you might see on the side of your window, you might see that interestingly, putting your phone down is winning right now as like the one, right? And thankfully, nobody clicked on doom scrolling. So that's a really good sign. So, but interestingly, yeah, and I think that's really important, actually. It's super important, just putting your phone down, because when you put your phone down when you're talking with someone, that immediately strengthens that connection that's happening. So, okay.
I agree more.
If you have any other questions that come to mind about social connection, I mean, I have the one right here. Maybe I'll save it for the Q&A. But like, if you have any other questions that come up, please put it in the Q&A session. We're going to start going through that as we get to that. So the next thing that we wanted to touch upon and start a dialogue on is diet. Just diet, starting that step-by-step transformation of diet. And that's such a big thing here because there's so many forces, in our current food system that make it difficult to change diet. So moving step by step through it and seeing where we want to be destination-wise is really important. And Annie, it's all you here. If you can start that conversation for us.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks, everybody. It's so great to be here. Jen, I just wanted to piggyback on that amazing photo that Jen shared. It just reminded me how important it is for us to give our elders relevance. This was one of my big takeaways. I just spent 6 weeks, much of it in the blue zone of Sardinia, where people are famous for living to be over 100, and they're very, very healthy in their 80s and 90s. And one of the things that stood out to me was that the elders in these communities, they maintain their sense of feeling relevant. So like when Jen asked her mom to come help the baby, even though her mom didn't feel like she was, prepared or whatever, that is like a longevity building habit or action. It's one of the things that just has really struck me from spending time over there. And I love how that picture just kind of wrapped it all up. So thanks, Jen. And I love Jen and Laura's Substack as well with the tips. It's super great. So definitely head over there and check it out. So I have 5 minutes or so to talk to you about food, right?
Yeah, 5 minutes, just get it going for us. You know,
That's
yeah,
always,
just
that's
5 minutes.
always a challenge.
I'm sure you
Okay.
can, yeah.
So since
Give
there's
step
lots I
one.
can say. So since our theme is 4 things, I'm gonna just sort of touch on the four F's of brain healthy eating. So when I was writing my book, The Brain Health Kitchen, a few years ago, I got it in my mind that I had to have an elevator pitch. Like, what if I was in an elevator with someone, they asked me, "Hey, you wrote a brain food cookbook. What is brain healthy food anyways?" And so I came up with the 4 F's of brain healthy eating. And it still stands today. I think it's a really good rubric if you're at the grocery store or staring down a restaurant menu or a 4th of July barbecue spread. It's just kind of a good thing to remember. So the first F is fiber. And we've been hearing a lot about fiber, right? Fiber is actually really cool now. It's a macronutrient. I know all the researchers here are laughing because they've all been studying it for decades and decades. But fiber-rich foods independently are known to be good for both heart and brain health. And if you look at my food pyramid in my book, and I don't know, Ed, if you have my book, you could probably pull it up. It's on page 33, I think. Almost all of the brain healthy food groups, at least 6 out of the 10, are rich in fiber. So fiber is like the secret ingredient that's baked into a brain healthy diet. If you're choosing from, the food groups like nuts and seeds, beans and legumes, leafy greens. Oh, thanks, Jen. Vegetables, whole grains, you are automatically introducing fiber into your diet. So it's baked into the system. And each of these food groups that you see in that pyramid is based on tons of data. To be on the pyramid, to be a rung of the ladder of the pyramid, you have to have lots and lots of data behind you. The work of Dr. Holland here and Jen's group at Rush is instrumental in helping us determine which those foods are. So number 1 is fiber. Just look at the food and think, wow, those baked beans have a sauce, but they're probably really rich in fiber. So if that's the one side dish at the barbecue I'm going to choose, probably going to go for the baked beans, right? So that can help you, build a brain healthy plate wherever you are. Now, the next one is something that Dr. Holland knows really well. This is flavonoids. I think I've called Tom the father of flavonoids in the past, because a lot of his research is on this. So flavonoids, as you probably know, if you've followed any of us, these are pigments in plant foods that are actually brain health nutrients. That's why, dietitians have been telling us for decades to eat the rainbow. What does this mean? This means choose foods that have a wide variety of colors, and you really can't go wrong. As long as you're choosing plant foods and not, ultra processed foods with crazy colors like Skittles or something. So when you go to the grocery store, you want to make sure that when you're checking out, your cart has lots of different colors in it. That's one thing I do every single time I go to the grocery store. And if I don't have anything colorful in my cart, I'll go back and, get some red peppers or some purple cauliflower or just something fun and different that maybe I haven't eaten in a while. And the reason flavonoids are so good for us is they do a lot of special actions, both in the gut and in the brain. They get activated in the gut to block oxidative stress, quell inflammation in the brain, and basically lower our load of chronic inflammation over decades. So these little tiny plant pigments are really working hard for our brain health. Now, the third F of brain healthy food is brain-friendly fats. And, I've been a big fan of brain-friendly fats for many, many years because, fat got such a bad reputation in previous decades. And now people are starting to understand that, fat is not a bad thing. It's a macronutrient, but it's also really important to have the right composition of fats in your diet. So the brain-friendly fats are the monounsaturated fats and some of the polyunsaturated. And saturated fat is not like the worst thing in the world either. You still need some saturated fat in your diet. But based on a lot of the data that we have coming out of the Mind Diet study, the Pointer studies, et cetera, we know that saturated fat should be a lot less, really under 8 or maybe even 5%, depending on someone's risk factors. So that means you're looking at a Mediterranean style diet where most of your fats come from things like plant foods, nuts, seeds, avocados, whole grains. Whole grains actually have fats in them, believe it or not. Nuts and seeds are huge. And polyunsaturated fats from things like fish and seafood. Okay, so the brain-friendly fats are really good to keep top of mind. And knowing that, fat is not a bad thing for your brain, we actually thrive on a certain amount of fat in our diet. But we definitely want to limit the saturated fats, which can elevate our cholesterol, and the trans fats. Those are definitely the bad fats. Everyone agrees that those are bad fats, but luckily a lot of them are getting weaned out of the food supply. Now, the fourth F is fit. And so what do I mean by fit? Well, there's a lot of talk about the Mediterranean diet. It's the most studied dietary pattern as it pertains to heart health, brain health, longevity, preventing chronic disease. But just because the Mediterranean diet is so proven and backed by so many studies, doesn't mean it's the only way to eat. If you looked at other dietary patterns that are similar in the composition of plant foods and fish and seafood and nuts and seeds, et cetera, then they probably would be just as brain boosting if they had the same amount of attention and backing. So if you grew up in an Asian American family, an African American family, a Latino family, your food pyramid might look different than that of the Mediterranean diet. It doesn't mean it's less healthy. The important thing is not to try to eat like a Mediterranean person if that's not how you grew up and it doesn't make sense for your food roots or for who you are, what you like to eat, or what you know how to cook. The point is to look at the composition of the dietary pattern and choose the most unprocessed foods, that make sense for you. Food has to fit with your budget. It has to fit with what you like. Food can be nostalgic. It can connect you with other people, with your family, with your friends, with the people that have grown the food. And I think all of these should be considered when you choose your own particular dietary pattern. I like to talk to people about choosing their own brain health pyramid. My pyramid probably looks different than yours or Ed's or Tom's or Jennifer's because, we're all different. We come from all these different backgrounds. But the principles in terms of protecting our brains should be the same. And how am I doing on time, Ed?
I think we're doing good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have one more thing I wanted to add, if there's time.
Yeah.
And this is a sneak peek of my Substack that's coming up tomorrow. We've been doing a series on cognitive enrichment and how it affects the brain. And so these are the things that you do in your free time. Like, do you play sports, or do you play mahjong, or do you play poker, or do you play pickleball? And I was really delighted to find data on all of these things in terms of protecting brain health in one way or another. And the last part of this series has to do with the act of cooking. Of course, I love to cook. I retired from my medical practice and went to culinary school basically because I wanted to teach people how to eat better through cooking. So I'm a big believer of cooking as a way to help really support your health in many, many ways. But I was so delighted to see this one study out of Japan that found that in older adults in Japan, these are people over the age of 65, those that weren't cooking at all, and then they were given an intervention where they started cooking more, over the 8 years that they followed these Japanese elders, they actually reduced their dementia rates with time, which I thought was amazing. So the less someone cooks now and the more they're able to increase that frequency seems to be the thing that made cooking a brain healthy habit. Okay. If you're already cook all the time, and you start to cook like 6 times a week instead of 5 times a week, it's probably not going to move the needle. You're already doing a great job. But it's in the elders that maybe aren't cooking. Maybe they're getting too much takeout or food delivery, or they're not having social interaction with their meals. This seems to be a lever that we could pay attention to more in our older populations. And I was just really delighted to see how cooking tied in. And it makes so much sense, right? When you're cooking, you're tapping into memory. Like you have to remember ingredients and steps and, how to use certain things. You're tapping into physical skills. Like you have to move around the kitchen. You have to lift pots. You have to, haul groceries. And then, the executive function is huge. in terms of, executing a recipe and getting it to the table. So I think your brain is having a really a secret brain workout every time you put dinner on the table. So just remember that if you're tempted to tap into an app and get dinner delivered.
Yeah, whenever I cook, and I cannot say that I am the culinary master of the house. So whenever I do cook, it is like, what's the sequence of things, like planning ahead, like, all that, so, and then of course, the actual act of doing it. So it's cooking is huge. Yeah, especially if people don't do it very much, then it's a big deal. It's like learning a new instrument or something like that,
Yeah, and think
Um,
of whoever's doing the meal planning for a family. I mean, that requires a lot of executive function and organizational skills.
Yes, exactly. Now, I was going to do a poll, but Sydney told me it's just way too obvious. I was going to do the 4 Fs, and then one of the Fs was going to be Funyuns, which, people should not select. But we'll just skip that. We all know it's fiber. We know it's the fats that are brain healthy. We know it's the flavonoids, and we know it's the right fit for diet, matching your maybe background and into brain healthy dietary patterns and foods. So okay, so I won't launch it, Sydney. So okay, but how about we dive next into overall body health, so full body health,
Yep.
other areas, right, that impact brain health, and just what the kind of core of that is, Tom, and
Yep.
kind of leave us with some beginning steps for that.
Yeah, so first and foremost, for me, being interested in this has been from brain health perspective and nutrition and physical activity. When I was a kid, my mom would bring me to the gym, and I would be in the childcare area. So I had this very, very great influence on physical activity at a young age. And that kind of helped me be in that realm. And then as I got older, my grandmother had a 10-year battle with Alzheimer's, with the last two being nonverbal. So from a passion perspective, I know as we saw at that earlier poll, there were some people that had said that there were individuals within their family, they're concerned about their own cognition. All of it comes back to how we're aging and what our quality of life is as we're aging. A mentor of mine had said that the goal should be, and this is different for other people, but the goal should be that you can hit the slopes at 90 years old, end the day having great conversation with great friends, and go to sleep that night and not wake up. And the idea there is that you're in an older age and you've maintained your cognitive and physical functionality for as long as you possibly can. And so when we think about the total body, that's where it comes in. Obviously, all of these components that we're talking about today are going to be beneficial for brain health, but there's also going to be aspects that really relate to just overall body health. So when we think about the dietary components and physical activity, we think about cholesterol. And I've seen some of the questions in the Q&A already inquiring about cholesterol. So we know that LDL cholesterol, which is low density lipoprotein, is going to be considered the quote unquote bad cholesterol. A lot of labs will say that a high end range is about 100, others will say 115. Either way, the concern with the LDL cholesterol is that it can go out into our bodies and cause fatty streaks and then eventually fatty plaques. And if those fatty plaques rupture, they can cause infarction or blockage of blood flow. Now, that becomes a big issue if it's a heart attack or if it's a stroke, and that leads to, some detriments in terms of functionality, or in terms of cognition. If it's a stroke, it can lead to some bad declines in cognitive functionality. Now, the great thing about the dietary aspects in physical activity is that depending upon the diet that we intake, we can reduce our LDL intake and our bodies can utilize that and have normal values. For physical activity as well, we can reduce the LDL and we can also increase the HDL. HDL is our high density lipoprotein. And what that actually can do is it goes out into our body and can actually scavenge the bad cholesterol and bring it back to the liver for processing. It's called reverse cholesterol transport. And so that's a wonderful thing, because I saw somebody talking about a familial hypercholesterolemia in the Q&A. And when we think about that, it's going to be a high cholesterol, particularly LDL, where there's concern. And if you can't, not yet, sorry, I saw the question pop up. When it comes to the cholesterol, um, if you are having difficulty with getting your LDL cholesterol down, there's also the opportunity for increasing the HDL. And we start thinking about HDL to total cholesterol ratios. We start thinking about LDL to HDL cholesterol ratios. And if we can start balancing things, it becomes a bit more feasible. Now, that being said, I also want to make it known that people will need medications. And I like to think about medications and lifestyle as a marriage between those two, as opposed to competing interests. Some people are going to need that extra help to maintain their optimal functionality. Now, I get this question all the time. HDL and LDL. What should I have high? What should I have low? The way I like to describe it is HDL is high density lipoprotein, have that be high. LDL is low density lipoprotein, have that be low. The reason the densities are different is because of the actual composition of the molecule. Low density lipoprotein has more fat, which is going to be lower density. And high density lipoprotein has more protein, which is going to be more dense or higher density. So that's one way I like to describe it to help people remember when they're looking at their own labs and trying to have those conversations. LDL, keep it kind of low, below 100, and HDL, try to keep it high. Now, when we think about, again, overall body function, all of this comes back to maintaining and optimizing just organ health. So cholesterol ties to heart health, and so does blood pressure. So, and blood pressure is going to be impacted by our physical activity. So big parts of Pointer were diet and physical activity, along with cognitive activities and socialization. Now, for the physical activity aspect, there's going to be different domains there. One major component is going to be the aerobics. And so the big suggestion there is trying to get around 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity during your week. So the best thing you could lean toward is trying to have 5 30-minute bouts. And what that's going to do is it's not going to only improve cardiovascular health, but it's also going to improve your neurovascular health. Now, tying this all together, there's going to be different labs that come into play as well. So I saw in the chat the hemoglobin A1C. And these are all really great things that you can track while you're progressing. An annual visit with your primary care doc to say, hey, where's my cholesterol stand? Where's my spot glucose? And where's my hemoglobin A1C? Your hemoglobin A1C is a measure of your last 2 to 3 months as an average of your blood sugar control. And we usually put the top end range at about 5.7. The reason it's a percent is because it's the percentage of sugar that has reacted with hemoglobin. It's called a glycosylation reaction. So if there's more sugar in your blood, that allows for a higher probability of reaction with hemoglobin. And so if there's more sugar, we can start to see that hemoglobin A1C tick up. And that's a good marker for indicating somebody that is within normal range, in a pre-diabetic range, which is kind of a yellow flag, like, hey, let's start making some modifications to diet and physical activity in particular. And then if we get into 6.5 and above, it tells us that there is potential for a diabetes diagnosis, and that there may be need for some other medication help. So I don't want to get into all the Q&A components, but Ed, any other particular points to raise at this juncture?
No, that's great. I just, but I did have a question in my own mind about just, how should we look at BMI,
Yeah.
or, how should we look at that? Just, is there a certain
Yes.
Certain number that we would have for brain health that we should care about versus, other areas versus diabetes, or is it just, a matter of, I could go down a big rabbit hole here.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe
So,
please mention BMI, yeah.
Yeah, so traditionally BMI has been broken down, body mass index, into a range of 18.5 to 24.9, and moving between healthy, overweight, obese, super obese. Now, the one thing that BMI doesn't account for in and of itself is going to be muscle density. And so BMI for individuals that are quite physically active is not going to be a great measure. So if I'm ever looking at BMI, I always take into account a waist circumference as well. And that's what we had done in US Pointer, because that allows for us to discern a bit more clearly the body habitus of somebody. If their BMI is quite high and the waist circumference is quite high, and that can kind of indicate a view of a bit more abdominal adiposity or stomach fat, and we can understand kind of body habitus. Now, if somebody has a quite high BMI, but their waist circumference is quite low, say 34 inches on a male, then we know that there's a bit more muscle density for that individual. It helps us be a bit more specific and pointed in how we interpret actual body composition. So if you're ever looking and calculating a BMI, definitely you want to take into account waist circumference as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. And we have one more topic here that we wanted to cover before we go into Q&A, and it's one that I'll cover briefly, and I think it does come to one of the questions in the Q&A right now, and that is, what supplements should I take? I love it. It's like straight up, what supplements should I take? But this is actually, it could speak to that, but it speaks more to the nutrients themselves. And so, I wanted to mention 3 nutrients here that as people get into middle age and older, become more important for us to keep track of for brain health. And so there are kind of a couple different criteria I use to come up with this. One is obviously, is there relevance to the brain, number one, and number 2 is it likely that people aren't getting enough based upon just epidemiology, right? And number 3, is it something that people should be particularly concerned about as they go into middle and older age, right? And so boil down to 3, right? And the 3 are B12, vitamin D, and omega-3 fatty acids. And I'll briefly go into each one. For B12, what's its relevance to the brain? Well, it has at least a couple different relevancies to the brain. The first is that from a structural standpoint, it helps the body in the process of making something called myelin, which is like the insulation that kind of our electrical wires or our nerves need to send signals back and forth. So it has a very almost constructive type of purpose, right? And the other purpose is that it helps keep a certain toxicant in the brain and the body lower. And that toxicant, or it can become a toxicant, is an amino acid called homocysteine. So if homocysteine levels start to rise, what B12 does is, if we have enough, it keeps it in check. And that homocysteine, if it gets too high, as mentioned, it could become toxic to the brain. So B12 is relevant because of that. And as we get older, what happens is that we might not have enough of the ability to absorb it, because B12 really, really, really relies upon stomach acid for its ability to get absorbed. And so as we get older, our ability to create stomach acid and create a certain type of protein that's specifically needed to digest or to absorb B12, our production of those starts to go down. So B12 is kind of one of those things to watch out for, and it's super easy to test for. I mean, you could go to the doctor if you haven't had one tested recently. Your B12 levels, you can have them tested basically any time at a preventive health visit. You can request it, and you're going to get a number, and there's a number that they give. Keep in mind, if you're below 250 on that number, then you're probably in a place where you should really think about B12 as something you want to increase through food and increase, maybe if you have to do supplementation, do that. That's where you need to look. Oh, and one more thing, B12 really quickly. B12 food sources are going to be mostly kind of fish, seafood, shellfish in particular, some meats, liver, things like that. So that's kind of like where like B12 is very abundant. For D3, similarly, it's one of those vitamins that you might have heard relies upon sunlight on our bodies, on our skin to produce. And as we get older, a lot of times is that we don't get out as often. And even in very hot climates like here, we're based in the Las Vegas area, it's very, very bright outside. So what happens? Nobody goes outside and they stay indoors, which is completely antithetic. It's completely reversed. But what happens is a lot of people don't get enough sun. But generally, as we get older, we don't get as much sun. We're not outside, with our arms and legs exposed for maybe 5 to 30 minutes a day, and we might not have enough vitamin D. And vitamin D is very relevant to the brain because our brain is covered in these vitamin D receptors, or kind of looking for them, looking for vitamin D. So there's a lot of gene expression involved in vitamin D with vitamin D in the brain. And also it's anti-inflammatories. It's a lot of anti-inflammatory mechanisms as well connected to vitamin D. So it's another thing to really watch out for, especially as we get older. And then once again, super easy to test. It's something called 25-OHD. It's a storage form of vitamin D floating around in our blood. That's any other test you can get at the doctor's office. And if you're below the 20 mark, that's another number to keep in mind. That's a number where you really need to say, oh, wow, I should probably think about vitamin D and try and get it in different ways. And interestingly, seafood is another place that's abundant in vitamin D. So seafood, obviously going out and getting a little bit more sunlight, but I wouldn't recommend sunbathing. It's more like getting outside and just getting some exposure. And then finally, for the omega-3s, I'll just mention briefly for omega-3 fatty acids, they are the DHA and the EPA, then that once again are commonly found or most abundantly found in fatty fish, cold water fish. So this is something where 90% of Americans don't eat enough of. Usually it's a lucky situation if a lot of families have even just one seafood meal or fish meal a week. Ideally, we would want to be in the 2 to 3 realm. But yeah, that's the reason why people should kind of watch out for that. Omega-3s, particularly the DHA component, are structural to the brain. So they make their way and form, and kind of help form the walls of our neurons, of our brain cells, and keep them nice and fluid and help them signal and talk with each other. So it's a very structural and very important omega-3 fatty acid. So but these DHA and EPA are very important for the brain. Once again, very easy to get tested for them, whether or not it be a plasma test or whether or not it be something called omega-3 index. So those are 3 things to watch out for. And I just realized as I was saying this, coincidentally, they're all commonly found and rich in seafood. Interestingly. So, and that's one of the brain healthy food groups. So vitamin B3, vitamin B12, D3, and then also omega-3 fatty acids. So I hope that helps people kind of get at least a lock on a few that they should be they should be tracking very well. I'm going to put up a slide, okay, and then we can get into some Q&A. But I'm going to put up a slide here, and that's the slide that Jennifer was speaking about a little bit earlier, and that is, go into here, that is, if I could find it, there's a picture of Tom, and so, there we go, right, and there we go. So, right there, and I believe, Annie, you've spoken about this, or you've done a podcast on this dedicated, almost like checklist format, for 14 risk factors for dementia. And these 4 areas that we've spoken about already kind of start to cross over into a lot of these different places here. And everyone here will get this, so you don't necessarily have to write it all down. But as Jennifer was mentioning, there's that social isolation aspect, which obviously can be interrelated with depression. So that social connectedness kind of works its way in, and in many of these others. So that's kind of why I just wanted to flash that up there, because there's so many ways that we can start to attack or go after risks and threats to our brain health and really just come out of it way ahead, actually. And so, yeah, Sydney, I don't know, what are we going to go into a Q&A?
Yeah, let's do it.
So, are you all ready for, so I know we've had a few come through, right?
Yes, and I see, Tom, you're replying to a question right now. Did you want to answer that one aloud?
Yes. So first and foremost, I was writing a detailed response for does being on a statin change the supplement a person should consider for brain health? So not in particular. So in very rare cases, you can see a paradoxical flip in HDL for some people that have statins. It's just how they metabolize certain medications. So the statin is an HMG-CoA reductase inhibitor, and it blocks the formation of your LDL. So presumptively, an individual on a statin should see a lower LDL and a higher HDL. That's typically what we would anticipate. So to the question, not in particular. So being on a statin doesn't really change that supplement. Now, the other one that sparked Ed's convo was the aspect of the supplements. So fortunately, Dr. Laura Baker, who is the primary principal investigator of the US Pointer trial, has been involved in several landmark studies. So one of them was called the Cosmos Mind. And what they had investigated was a cacao-enriched drink, as well as separately a multivitamin versus a standard. And what they found was that an individual that was taking a multivitamin had better overall cognitive functionality. So what that really indicates, just generally speaking, is that although we can get all of our nutrients from whole foods, and that is the best way. The way I like to describe it is that if you're intaking a salad, for instance, you're going to be getting upwards of 70 to 80 different vitamins and minerals. So if you're doing that, you've got different vegetables, you've got, hopefully a olive oil based dressing. There's going to be a lot of different components there. However, there are going to be some individuals that have gaps in those nutrients, and they will need some help there. And so I personally love supplements. I take a multivitamin every day. I take my Relevate as well. And I really try to be very cognizant about getting my fish and my veggies, but I do recognize that when I'm on the go a lot and if I'm traveling, I will falter. Not gonna lie, I will have some challenges while I'm traveling in particular where I'm not getting the appropriate foods that I should be, and I kind of lean on supplementation for myself in those scenarios. So supplements are a really great bridge to potential gaps. Now, that being said, I also saw a comment about creatine. I do want to reiterate that creatine gets broken down into creatinine, and our blood tests look at blood urea nitrogen and creatinine ratios, which is BUN and creatinine. And our GFR is estimated off of how quickly creatinine is moving through our kidneys. So generally speaking, in a normal, healthy individual, creatine should not be impacting your kidneys. Now, if you do have a known kidney issue, working with your primary care or nephrologist just to be cognizant of that is really important. But generally speaking, the creatine supplementation shouldn't be impacting your kidneys. So those have been my responses thus far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and yeah, that's right. That's a really good point. So I think it's with creatine, it'll break down into creatinine, and so if the person is um, it could make it look like someone has an issue with their kidneys. So if you think you might have issues with your kidneys or a history of it, then you might want to get baseline check beforehand, right? And then you can and then of course consider whether or not to go on to creatine. But for others, it could just be a straight up a false flag almost. So
Yep.
oh wait, I think Jennifer's raising her hand.
Yeah, I just briefly want to say I love the conversation about checking with your doctor and getting your levels tested. One other thing that's really relevant, especially for older adults and really for all of us, right, is to make sure we're all adequately hydrated. Sometimes we forget to drink water, right? And then when you go to the doctor and you get your levels tested, you can be dehydrated. And not only can that falsely elevate some of the levels and maybe show false results, but it can also actually maybe influence our cognitive symptoms. So just making a vote for staying well hydrated, good old natural water.
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's huge. That should be like a brain health food, basically. That should be out there and written down, as one of the many. Uh, yeah, I see it. I see a question here from Rhonda, right? It's on, there was a study in the Journal of Prevention of Alzheimer's Disease on omega-3 supplementation. I don't know how many of us are aware of that. I perused it actually and took a look at it. Um, it's an interesting study. What it does is they took a group of people, from what I understand, and Tom and Jen, you can correct me if I'm wrong, um, but they can, they took a study of people from something called the Alzheimer's disease neuroimaging cohort. So it's just like a lot of people who joined into this study and kind of agreed to be imaged, and they kind of picked out people, right, based upon what their they picked out people, I believe, based on what they didn't look necessarily at they took people almost like from different parts of the spectrum, whether or not they're from healthy, mild cognitive impairment, and also in Alzheimer's disease, and then they took what they had available for what their cognitive testing was in certain domains, and then they followed them, and then they took a measurement later, and they picked out the ones that said that they were taking supplements of omega-3s. And the reason why this is such an interesting study is because there was another study in 2023, I believe, with the exact same cohort, right, the 89 cohort, and they came up with a very, very different conclusion. And when you compare both of those studies, one that has a result that says, oh, hey, fish and supplementation of omega-3s is very helpful, and then one that just recently came out and said, well, we don't know, right? This might look bad. It really boils down to how they chose their cohorts that they looked at, and also what their endpoints were. And I guess I could go into this quite in detail, but I know Annie's raising her hand right now. So maybe Annie, you could jump in. But I,
Oh,
yeah,
no, that's
I
fine.
have thoughts on this, but
I was actually just going to make a comment about the creatine and,
Okay.
kidney impact. It's really important to let your healthcare team know what supplements you're taking. For example, I went in to get my annual, in the fall, and my doctor called me. She was really, really concerned because my creatinine was super high. And like Tom just explained to us, creatine breaks down into creatinine, so you can get this falsified lab value. And I had told her that I was on creatine, but apparently didn't make it into the chart. So it's actually really important to share this with your healthcare team. All the supplements you're on, and weigh in and include them in all those decisions too. And it's important for them to know that you're on an omega-3 supplement as well, especially if you're going to have elective surgery, or they want to factor that into any other medications they might prescribe. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Mhm. So I know, Andy, that we're going to be doing a podcast at some point. We're going to be talking about omega-3s, and just to complete the thought, on the omega-3 question. There are a lot of methodological comments that could be made about the recent study on omega-3s, and so we can maybe get into that at another time. Maybe what we can do is write back to Rhonda separately, but this is it's one of those things where a lot of researchers out there are kind of wondering how the methods were done on that particular study. Okay, wait. So I think it's 11:02 right now here in Pacific time. So I just want to make sure that we do this raffle. Okay. So I'm going to show something here, and then hopefully you're going to see it on your screen. And Sydney, what we're going to do is we're going to do 2 winners, because we just hate doing when there's only one raffle prize winner, right? Because if there's only one raffle prize, nobody thinks they're going to win. So 2, okay, so 2 raffle prizes. And Sydney, I just want you to let us know who our winners are.
All right, and these are just randomly selected. We have NAE, that's their username. And
NAE.
yes, so NAE or NAE.
Okay, congratulations.
First winner.
And
we have Dawn Modakef as our second winner.
Okay, all right. Dawn and May, congratulations. So if you see here, this is our grand prize. You'll see in there's the Brain Health Kitchen book by Annie. There's the Mind Diet book, the official Mind Diet book by Jen. And then there's a few different items here. Olive oil, that's the Brain Health Kitchen olive oil. It's something that we partnered with Annie to bring. It's a wonderful olive oil. And a couple of our NeuroReserve supplements, Relevate and Revanza, creatine, and a mug, by the way, because you always need a mug. So congratulations for that. And then also, by the way, for everyone, keep in mind these things. And Sydney, if you can put in the comment area these links. So these are actual, benefits where you can sign up and just get to know more about brain health in general. These are wonderful Substack subscriptions where you can get a lot of additional information outside of what's already available, like from a free kind of standpoint. There's so much more and so many more other things, that come about through them. So for the Mind Diet and then for the Brain Health Kitchen, those links you want to go to and you can use those. And then also for us, just through June 24, just write down this code. It stands for Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month, so ABAM. so write that down, ABAM 30. It's like 30% off, just like, just for the next 24 hours. Just write that down. It's just for you, and you can use it if you'd like to try any of our products, Brain Health Kitchen olive oil, anything along those lines. So just wanted to say congratulations again to Nay, right? Maybe those are initials, or maybe it's your name, Nay, and also Dawn Modakef. So congratulations on this. We're going to get in touch with you, and we're going to make sure you get this and it's sent out to you. And also, I want to do one more slide here. And I know we didn't get to all the questions, so we're going to try and figure out a way to maybe start answering some of them. We could write you back separately, maybe answer some of them in actual. We're going to try and put this online, this whole podcast, and maybe some of the questions we weren't able to get to, we can get to and answer them in like a little Q&A written part. But where to find everyone here? So this is where you can. So take a look. And you'll see Annie, it's pretty easy, brainhealthkitchen.substack.com. And for Jen, it's also very simple. It's the official Mind Diet. tom.substack.com. And you can find Tom if you just go to Rush University Medical Center and just pound the halls for him. You can find him there. You're going to find him in a lot of places too. You're going to find him probably in certain, I don't know. Tom, you seem to have this, like, you seem to keep getting asked to make comments on, like, you know, these big national things, you know, and stuff like that. So, you know, you'll probably see him there as well.
Yeah, so I put, to your point on the homocysteine, I had the opportunity to provide some commentary for B12 and folate deficiencies having a potential role in fatigue, chronic fatigue. So I threw that article in the meeting chat.
Excellent, excellent. So thank you very much, everyone. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I know everyone's very busy, and especially for our panelists. So I just want to say thanks so much for joining us. This is it's a great privilege to have you all here, Annie, Tom, Jen, and most of all for everyone who joined here, actually, so that we can all kind of get together and talk about brain health. Really appreciate you spending some time with us. And also for anyone who's going to be watching, actually, after this is recorded and posted. So really appreciate you, Jen, Annie, and Tom, and everyone on here. So any parting words, any parting thoughts for our panelists?
No, just thanks for showing up. I mean, I'm so impressed. Everyone's here learning about their brain health. I mean, that's really what it's all about. So we're just really, we're here for you. We have lots of resources, and we're all in this together.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I think my favorite sign off is that health is a lifelong journey. It's not about doing everything, but trying to do something every day.
Nice, nice.
Small steps, big wins. Love it.
All right.
Being
Well, thank
here,
you so much, everyone, and have a great day.
See you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.